If you've had your website defaced, you probably have a few questions. You probably want to know how the hackers gained access, what they can do to your site once they have access, and you probably also want to know how to kick them out. So we have a detailed blog post which can be found on our blog, which covers this topic in more detail. I'm going to link to that blog post below, but in this video we're going to cover some of the basics. So let's jump in. First, let's talk about why the hackers defaced your website. There's a range of possibilities, but it's probably not personal. It generally boils down to one common denominator, because they could. There are thousands of hackers roaming the web each day looking to deface and hack websites. They're simply looking for the weakest duck in a pack. Essentially, they are looking for sites with easy to identify vulnerabilities. Let's now quickly talk about what they've done. First and most obvious is that they have defaced your website. They usually do this to either your homepage, an internal page, or in some cases they even deface all pages within your site. But in our experience, the defacement is usually the least of your worries. The defacement itself is a front-end notice letting you know that you've been hacked. In some ways, it's kind of a positive thing because front-end changes are easy for the average webmaster to understand, while back-end code changes require coding knowledge to properly analyze. So it's possible that the defacement was simply just a defacement. They simply wanted to plant their flag on your website, or scribble on your website, so to speak, and that's it. However, in the vast majority of cases, the problem runs much deeper than a simple defacement, because to deface a website, you need to have access to that website. And depending on what level of access they have to your website, there's a whole host of things that they could do. Some of the most common things they do are inject phishing scripts onto your site that collect sensitive user information, such as user login details or credit card information. They can also inject redirects or adware, which put your audience in front of sites that your audience probably doesn't want to be in front of. They can also hijack your server and send spam emails. They can also inject ransomware. And a new thing that we've started seeing recently is that they're using hacked web servers as crypto mining servers. This is just a partial list of some of the bad things that they can do. There are countless ways for hackers to enter a site to deface it, but one of the most common methods is for hackers to exploit badly written code on your website. This code is usually found in themes, plugins, or even outdated versions of the WP core. Once a hacker identifies a code vulnerability, they use SQL injection techniques that allow them to pass an extra SQL query, sometimes through online forms like login forms or contact forms, which permit them to add their own SQL query or modify an existing original query. Next, if their code is successfully injected into your system, the hackers can gain access to valuable user data like usernames or password information. Then using this data, they can find ways to gain admin access to your site. Unfortunately, the problem usually doesn't even stop there. Once inside, hackers often attempt to upload an executable file, which, if successful, would allow them to gain admin access to the entire server. The damage that they can do at this level is only limited by the hacker's imagination. The first step to fix the defaced website involves finding out more information about your hack by studying server logs so you can find out more information about who did it and how they did it. To narrow down which information to look for in your server logs, one of the best things to do is to examine the attributes of a known defaced file. You'll need to do this to determine what day and time the hack occurred at. Files on the server have a last modified attribute. So for example, if you have a defaced page at mysite.com/deface.html, you need to look at the last modified date of deface HTML. 80% of the time, this will give you a clue regarding the date of your hack. It doesn't always work, but it's a very good starting point. Next, you can study the server logs from this date to look for suspicious traffic. Suspicious traffic is usually fairly easy to spot. The traffic usually has unusual surfing behavior. So for example, they might have an unusual number of site visits that day, and they're often trying to access pages that a normal visitor wouldn't try to access. In some cases, they're even trying to access pages that don't exist. Once you've identified the IP address and the access points, you can start doing a deeper scan of the site files to find out exactly how they gained access and then patch those files. This is the hard part because you need to understand how to read code to do this. You can run your site through various malware and phishing script scanners, and you might find a few files to remove, but these tools very, very rarely give you the full extent of your problem. They provide a good starting point, but you also need to understand their limitations as well. So if you know how to analyze code, the main things that you're looking for are mismatches in file structure. If you're using an open source CMS like WordPress, you can compare your site's files and file structure with the freshly downloaded and clean versions. You need to do the same for any plugins or themes you're using as well. The harder part is finding the PHP-based backdoors, because these are generally very cleverly hidden and elusive. Backdoors allow hackers to easily regain access whenever they want. Even if you've cleaned your site and changed your passwords, they can easily regain access. The truth is that hackers do not let go of sites that they've gained access to very easily. It's estimated that over 70% of hacks have backdoor entry points, which allow hackers to bypass web security and fly below the radar of virtually all automated scan technology, because most of the malicious code at this level uses some form of encoding to avoid detection. However, when you're looking for these backdoors, it's important to remove all of them. Don't assume there's only one, there's often many. And if you miss one, your site will easily be reinfected whenever the hacker feels like accessing your site again. So once you've identified and cleaned all malicious files and closed all backdoors, you need to harden your site security, because removing the hack didn't fix the problem. Even without a backdoor, the hacker could simply do the same thing they did in the first place to deface your website. Cleaning and removing the files aren't enough. It didn't fix your problem. To harden your security, begin by examining your server setup and configuration. Servers are a really common access point for hackers. Hackers exploit websites using hosts with outdated software, so make sure that you're running the latest versions of Apache, cPanel, and PHP, and so on. Next, reset all passwords. This includes passwords to your hosting client, cPanel, WHM login, databases, even all of your email accounts. Lastly, you need to install a web application firewall or WAP. These help you protect against DDoS and brute force attacks. You can also do things like server IP cloaking, set up page rules to help filter out suspicious browsing activity, or install and configure an SSL certificate for your server. All of these things together will greatly help you harden your website security. Hacked.Doctor can help you with all of these things, and we can do it quickly. So if you need help cleaning, repairing, or strengthening your website, please reach out to us today. We're in the business of making your problems our problems. Thanks for watching.